What's up, you absolutely wonderful Magento loving friends of mine? Joseph here with another practice test question. I am really grateful for Jesse and Miha filling in for the past couple weeks, creating these practice test questions, as well as the explainer videos to go around it. One thing I will say, I welcome your challenges. If you disagree with the question, you disagree with my answer on it, feel free to challenge me. I love these type of challenges. And in fact, by challenging me, you might just get invited on to Smash the Bug, and where we can have a really lively, good conversation about why you think the way you think it is what is right. That's how we all learn. I will learn, you'll learn, we'll have a great conversation. As such, let's jump into this question. Now, the background for this question, at least from my perspective, is you are a tech lead or an architect. I will argue that this is fairly basic for a tech lead or an architect, but it illustrates why understanding Magento in its fullest is absolutely critical to writing good technical specifications. Let's take a look at the question here. You have a requirement to build a REST API endpoint. The data will be accessible in two groups. Group number 1 has access to some data, but group number 2 has access to all the data. Question: keeping maintainability in mind, how do you build this endpoint? All right, now, before we look at the answers, you've already seen the answers. Hopefully you've made a selection as far as which answer you think is correct. We have to understand a very important part of this question, and that is keeping maintainability in mind. These are scary qualifiers in the question. The reason it's scary is because every one of those answers could be right. And in fact, what you'll see, or you have already seen, every one of these answers could be plausible. Now we have to choose the best answer, or the answer that matches this qualifier, which is the most maintainable answer. So what are the answers here? And you'll see I've marked the correct answer already. So we have three on deck here. Build two separate endpoints, one for each group, A. B. Use extension attributes that are attached to ACL resources, and C. Create a plugin to filter out returned data. All right, so remember, it's not a matter of what's the right answer here, but it's more a matter of why is this the right answer? Why would we think this answer is better than the other answers? So let's look at answer A. Build two separate endpoints, one for each group. Now, the thing with this answer is this is technically feasible, right? And I believe many people would choose this answer. Well, I mean, at least in practical real life. The problem with this is we either have to have code duplication or inheritance. Neither of these is ideal. We shouldn't be doing much inheritance. Unfortunately, I see this all the time, and it's not good. In fact, in Magento 2.4, is it 2, I believe? They made it so that the controller doesn't have to extend the abstract action class, and now it is literally just implementing the HTTP GET action interface or post action interface, whatever. So Magento has been pushing away from inheritance as well. So while we have these basically a subset, and then we have the whole deal. We could use inheritance or code duplication, but neither of those are overly maintainable. So while this is possible, I would say this isn't the most maintainable answer. So let's look at the next option. We see that the next option is what I believe is the best ideal answer in this situation. Use extension attributes that are attached to ACL resources. Now, I don't know if you have done this before, but this is where the deep dive, as we go into with our courses, to understand these particular topics at a high level of understanding is so critical to the decisions that you make every single day. So let's look at some code here. In this example, and the way I achieved this is we can do extension attributes, XSD, and we go through all this in the course, and that's why these courses are so valuable. We can see all the different options that are available here. But if we drop down here to the bottom, we see resource type and ref. We can see this in practical workings here, and it's honestly not used very often in Magento. So basically what's happening here is this extension attribute is attached to an ACL resource. If this ACL resource is set for the incoming request authentication, well, then theoretically this would be returned back. There is no such mechanism for any of the getters or setters on a given service contract or an interface. That does not exist. So extension attributes are the only way that I'm aware of to filter, toggle on or off based off of permissions, information that is passed back through a REST API. Now, how does this work? If or as you get familiar with REST API, you will spend some time in this data object processor. The data object processor is basically what takes, well, as we see a data object here, it's a class, and the class's type, and it returns an array of these values. This is where, if we scroll down here, this is where if we have a array, the key and the key is dropped from this array, and is basically just returns an array of a specific type that is specified right here. This is a rabbit hole we could spend a lot of time going down, and I suggest you do go down that as you have some time. Just take 15-20 minutes, more time than we have in this explainer video, and you will understand how this data is returned, and it will make a lot more sense to you. It's not just this magic type of thing that occurs, somewhere way out in space. No, this happens in code that is easily accessible to you. So as we dig into this, we see our return type. Actually, we see our key, get field name from method name. So we have the method name. We're iterating through the methods map. Each method has a name that's converted over to snake case. As we see right here, key is equal to extension attributes. I don't know why there's not a constant used here, but whatever. All right, so if this is extension attributes, we build output data array. Going through each one of the extension attributes, we see is permission checked, which I believe is true by default, but ultimately you could change that if you wanted to. And then if this is not valid, then it continues. So basically it just skips past this silently. We jump into here, and we get the list of permissions for this extension attribute, the list of permissions being specified right here. And we iterate through, and this is an AND situation. Every one of those permissions that is specified here in our extension attributes XML file must be set. If it is not set, well, then it's going to return false, which means it's going to skip past returning this extension attribute value. This is why I have chosen B to best satisfy this answer. I believe it is the most maintainable, it's very easy to set up and configure, and long-term it provides good access to this data. Now, obviously, with extension attributes, you would have to load the data. Now, there is different ways to load the data. One way is you load it yourself via plugins. Another way is to use one of these joins to have Magento automatically load this data out of another table, and bring it in. So ultimately, this, depending on the situation, this could introduce a little bit more code. But ultimately, I have yet to find that extension attributes are problematic in the long run. All that to say, let's take a quick look at C here. Create a plugin to filter out return data. Now this would work. We would have to create a plugin for each getter and setter. We would have to work through saving. So does this user have permission to access or save these values? We do not want these values to be blanked out. We just, when saving, like if those values were already specified, we don't want them to be blanked out. As such, we have to create a plugin to filter out this returned data. Would be also a problem for Swagger, right? If we share access to a client, they would miss out these with this information. So all that to say, I do not believe creating a plug, this answer C, is a viable option either. So that's why I chose B. Challenge me. I would love that. And let's have a conversation. That is your practice test question explainer for today. Looking forward to next week, where we're going to bring you another really awesome one.